Live.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for those technical issues, and again, good mid-morning to all of you who are attending this session. And I'm very happy to see you here today for the session on Destination 2, with quite a selection of topics, number of 7, which will focus on breakthrough technologies as well as social sciences and humanities, and a quick point on national contact points. So I'm very pleased to have 4 speakers today, with 3 of them online to present those topics. Maggiore, Sirius Gubionas, and Hailson Valdo, as well as Thomas Schubert, who could not join us live, unfortunately, but who left a video message. So before I leave the floor to the first speaker, let me remind you that you can ask all of your questions through the Slido, where you have the QR code right here on the screen, as well as the hashtag where you can connect. And we'll take them at the end of the presentation. So let's hear for our first speaker, Mr. Maggiore. The floor is yours.
Thank you. If you can launch my slides. I assume you are going to send them, or should I share mine? Oh, okay. Thank you. So next slide. I'm going to talk about the first 3 topics of the breakthrough area. I want to underline basically what the whole thing is, just to give a brief introduction. With this, we are trying to bridge the gap between the technologies that more or less are close on the market or close to market, and the ones we might need for further decarbonization in the next decades. So this is intended to really look at big jumps in technology wherever they come. The first topic is let's say the widest, is really looking at nothing in particular, like the next one, where we have identified some promising areas, and as you can see, the scope, it's very wide. We basically are looking for technologies that provide big jumps in let's say in these sectors, be it transport, fuel cells, energy generators, energy distribution, storage, and negative GHG emissions. We exclude some areas because they are well covered already elsewhere, like materials, renewables, energies, including hydrogen and batteries. We try to look at some areas, and here I would highlight that there is a typo in the work program. So the first bullet here, technologies providing and so on, is in the work program is split after starting with transversal intersectoral decarbonization. So it's 2 bullets, while in reality it's just 1. So the idea is to look at some, but these are by far not exhaustive, areas where we think we could be interesting results, like integration of possible work stream on different fuels, hard to decarbonize sectors, you know, steel making, chemistry, or whatever, where there are issues today with the technology that we have to do it efficiently and at low cost. Long range transport, particularly the very heavy one like maritime or aviation or rail. And also the thermal power generators, you know, the small heating appliances that are difficult to decarbonize with the current technologies. Of course, we want big jumps in energy. We are not looking for the milliwatts. We are looking for the kilowatts and more. And of course, scalability. We could have an application demonstrated or in any case worked on in this, but we are interested in looking whether this has a potential for large scale applications. And of course, looking at the materials and trying not to have something that creates problems down the road. Next slide. As I said, this is to try and have the technologies that lead us to a full transition to climate neutrality by 2050. So it's technologies that should be applicable in 2030 or later. Looking at knowledge and scientific proof of the feasibility at this stage, if there are really new concepts. Looking at the environmental, social, and economic benefits in the sense that environmental means we would have an interest in using benign materials and technologies and things like that. So we also have an LCA requirement whenever something new or something different is implied, just to know, as I said, that we don't go towards other problems. And of course, some of these technologies might have issues with social acceptance, resistance to paradigm changes, and so on. And in that case, also looking at these issues is a good thing, just to not to hit the wall afterwards. Next slide. Yeah, here is just a quick synthesis. We have 20 million on this, roughly 2.5 million per project. The deadline in, like for the other topic, so I will not repeat it, is October 19th. And the idea here is to get maximum to TRL 4, so starting at 2 or 3, quite low TRL. Next slide. As I said, the first one is a kind of catch-all with all the new ideas. We didn't want to be prescriptive, but then the other ones are more focused. One is about methane cracking. Is an emerging approach that seems to be promising something better than the current hydrogen production from methane, which is producing CO2 with all the problems of this. While there are already some examples of possibility of splitting the hydrogen directly in carbon, solid carbon, and hydrogen. The idea is to advance on what has been seen. We would like to have a 50% efficiency, including all energies involved, and to show the potential of these innovative approaches to be scaled to mass production. The idea is to have a low hydrogen cost by this, and at the same time, better chances of using this with no impact, because it has, as I said, solid carbon instead of having the CO2 to handle. Not only, but the solid carbon can have practical uses. And in that, you will see later, this could have applications like synthetic graphite, if there is a way of getting that form of carbon. And at the same time, any idea of having other side streams for whatever comes out in order to even have a better utilization of these side streams. Of course, again, looking at all the environmental and resource and economic aspects, I mean, if you use a very rare material to do this process, of course, this is a problem. Next slide, please. As I said, we would like to have this cleaner hydrogen. Is not is not green, but having the solid carbon, this would be easier to handle for climate neutrality. As I said, with the valorization, if possible, of the other product, which is the carbon, and looking at ways of making the whole chain beneficial, which of course requires that the upstream natural gas sources are abated. Otherwise, it's difficult to have a positive result. If this were possible, this would give an important socioeconomic benefit for economies which are relying on natural gas today, and they would become more favorable than against the transition. Next slide. The action is again an REA. The budget is similar to the other one, but in this case we have a pool, a separate pool of 15 million shared with the other topics, this and the other one that I will mention. Same deadline, and here, since there are some examples, we think that we could be from 3 to 5 in terms of TRL. Next slide. Another area that we singled out is removal from the air mainly of other greenhouse gases. There's a lot of talk about CO2 removal from the atmosphere, but there are gases which are even more detrimental, and therefore ways of removing them would be interesting. And of course, it's capture, concentration, and use or disposal without creating problems. It could be also from natural sources, thinking about, for instance, those areas where methane is being released in the atmosphere from the permafrost, for instance. There could be probably higher concentrations to deal with, and therefore it could be easier. Of course, carbon dioxide could be considered if it's part of the same flow. There are synergies possible between these methodologies and the ones for CO2. In any case, you are moving a lot of air because we are talking about ppm or even lower concentrations. And therefore, if there is in the technology any benefit in doing co-capture, so to say, or other pollutants, this would be a benefit. Of course, the proposal have to show where this come from, what let's say is the basis for the concept, and this excludes emissions which are the normal methane emission from the chain. So we want to fund really capture from the air and not from the supply chain. Next slide. So what we want to prove that this has a feasibility, that there are sufficient benefits in doing that in terms of energy and economy, raise the awareness of the public of all the effects of these other strong greenhouse gases, and try to have in our let's say armory a weapon against these, particularly, as I said, in the case of methane, when we know that there will be big releases if the permafrost get thawing. And looking at all the techno-economic aspects of this and the whole chain to see whether there's any solution that can be brought to market in a cost-effective way. Next slide. It's again RIA. This is part of the pool, so 2-3 million per project out of a total pool of 15 million with the other two topics. Same deadline, and here we expect a starting TRL below or equal to 3. That's from my side. I'm ready for any question if there's any. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much, Maurizio, for those very interesting presentations of the 3 topics. So now we have Mr. Gugunas, who will present the last topic of the breakthrough technologies. So, Vasilios, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And suppose I need to wait for the presentation to come on the screen. Yes. So today I'm going to present you a topic on on direct atmospheric capture and conversion. So next slide, please. So this topic actually, it links well with the topics we have on carbon capture, utilization and storage, what we call the CCUS. So CCUS will play a crucial role in Horizon Europe, but also the EU Green Deal, in particular for the transition of energy-intensive industries, and also the power sector. We aim towards, of course, climate neutrality by 2050. And if the CCUS is combined with sustainable biomass, of course, it would create negative emissions. Then, of course, we can produce hydrogen from natural gas with CCUS, but this will be also only will be in the transitional phase towards fully renewable hydrogen from renewable sources. The CCUS will play a role, of course, in industrial clusters and how to demonstrate the full CCUS chain. And then we need to find ways to convert and do research on to convert of capture CO2 to use of products. And this, of course, links very well to these particular topics, which I will present. Next slide, please. So this topic is about this direct atmospheric carbon capture and conversion. This is a topic Horizon CL5 2021 D2 111. And this technology actually aims to contribute to reach the climate neutrality by 2050 by creating carbon 6 required to balance our residual emissions in 2050, but also using the carbon capture from the air to make raw materials in order to replace other fossil-made raw materials. So the scope of this topic is to establish the technological feasibility of this technology to include also environmental, social and economic benefits with a goal to establish a concept as a viable technology to fight climate change. Next slide, please. So within the scope of this topic, the aim is to investigate potential technologies that require major technological breakthroughs. So some examples include, of course, to increase knowledge on existing, but also to develop new oxidant-tolerant catalysts. Also to develop thermal chemical conversion technologies for this technology, and to develop photoelectrochemical conversion technologies for this particular technology to investigate that. And the technological concepts that will be supported actually to combine capture conversion in a single step in order to eliminate the need to regenerate the absorbents or adsorbents, and also to be able to enable decentralized production of chemicals and fuels using solar energy devices. One aspect that I need to emphasize is that the projects that will include research on the use of what we call direct capture for enhanced oil recovery will not be considered on this topic. Next slide, please. So what are the expected outcomes? The project results are expected to contribute to at least one of the following expected outcomes: to increase the knowledge of existing or develop new materials for direct atmospheric carbon capture conversion technologies, and to address potential barriers to incorporate of direct air capture in the existing CCUS concepts, or to make direct atmospheric carbon capture conversion technologies a viable technology to make the EU carbon neutral by increasing the TR levels to TR levels. Next one, please. So what are the TRLs funding and particular deadlines for this particular technology? So this topic focuses on, as I said, to technological concepts at low TRLs of 3 or lower, to start with, and the activities are expected to achieve a TRL 4 to 5 by the end of the project. So the Commission estimates that the EU contribution of 2 to 3 million will allow these outcomes to be addressed. However, we will not exclude any proposals requesting different amounts. So we expect that the projects to be funded will be around 2 projects, and this will be, of course, a research innovation action, and the funding rates are up to 100%. And the total indicative budget for this topic is 15 million. Of course, this includes topic 9 and 10, which were mentioned before. So the deadline for this is to submit proposals is the 19th of October 2021. So I think that was my last slide.
Thank you very much, Vasilios, for this, again, very interesting presentation on breakthrough technologies. And now we are going to move on to the next cross-cutting, because obviously innovation can be technological, but it's also social innovation. So we have here Guy Schoenwaerder, who will present to us some 3 topics on social sciences and humanities. So Guy, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just waiting for the first slide to appear. It's just going to be the welcoming screen. Maybe I can already give you a bit of introduction to these 3 topics. You might be a little bit surprised to find topics on transitional justice, on research communities in the social sciences and transition superlabs together with these more technical topics. You shouldn't be too worried about that. The fact that they're in this particular part of the program doesn't really matter too much. These are 3 topics that are supposed to inform everything under the cluster. And the general context for these 3 topics is, in fact, the mainstreaming or the integration of social sciences and humanities and of citizen engagement throughout the cluster, which is something that we're trying to do across not just this cluster, but actually Horizon Europe as a whole. So don't get confused by the fact of finding these 3 topics in this particular context. So let me move to the first one of those topics, fostering a just transition. And I flipped the sequence around that you find in the work program. I'm starting with the scope. Sorry, I would like actually to start with the scope. So can we go back to the previous slide? Yes. Which is the context, the why of why we put this topic into the program. The basic idea is to better understand the challenges of a just transition. And there we start from the assumption that a just transition is not just limited to compensating those that lose out when you move to a different way of living and producing. So we're not just talking about financial compensation, and we're also not only talking about jobs and skills and economic development, as important as these things are. We're also talking about various forms of inequality, and I'm going to get to that in a second. We're talking about agency and voice for those most affected. And we're talking also about governance arrangements to make this happen. And we start from the assumption that we need to know a lot more about these issues in order to arrive at a just transition. So I mentioned the different dimensions of inequality, and in the text you'll find this spelled out in quite some detail. We're talking about distributional implications. We're talking all sorts of other equity aspects other than socioeconomic aspects. We're talking about the gender dimension here. I'm open to questions. I'm not going to go through all the details right now. all this should lead to policy options and measures. We would like this to be applied. It's not just about understanding and knowing more, but it's also about doing something about it. So this should lead to actions, policy options, and measures, which will have some link to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and also, or should also have links to work by other projects that could be connected to a just transition. So now, if I can have the next slide, thank you. Now we're getting to the outcomes, and there we have 4 particular outcomes. First one is better understanding of the distributional repercussions of the transition to climate neutrality. And again, we're going into quite some detail across sectors, social groups, countries, regions, cities, etc. The second outcome that we expect is a better understanding of the trade-offs and synergies between climate action, climate change impacts, equity and justice, social inequality, gender inequality. So the idea is that it is probably unlikely that we can get the best of all worlds altogether, but that we have to make some trade-offs, but at the same time that some of these goals can support and reinforce one another. Third expected outcome is addressing procedural justice concerns, and that means especially that we want to see or we want to know how to better involve stakeholders and citizens into all these things. I mentioned agency and voice previously. And then fourthly, we would like to see new scientific evidence to inform policymaking at EU level, national level, regional level, in order to be able to design better policies for just transition. So that would be the first topic. And I think I'm going to go through my 3 topics before entertaining any questions. So if I could have the next slide, please. Okay, this is the topic on strengthening SSH communities. Again, the scope is that we feel, and this is also very well explained in the Horizon Europe program, the legal base and the different documents that go along with it, such as the strategic plan and of course the work program itself. We believe that multidisciplinary approaches and perspectives are necessary to tackle the transition to carbon neutrality. It's not all about technology. It's not all about science. It's not even all about economic policy making, but the different aspects and perspectives that are needed. And for that, we still need better collaboration and, as I say here on the slides, more extensive and cohesive networks linking different research communities. And we are mentioning here in particular, because we find that particularly important, the links between SSH, social science and humanities communities, and the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, mathematical research communities, since there, there's the greatest need for more collaboration. And it's also perhaps the greatest difficulty, as many of us will know. It's not easy, but it's a very fruitful, potentially, and very important thing to enhance that collaboration. Thirdly, we would like this to happen in a way that also brings in citizens and stakeholders in view of overcoming barriers to their participation. And fourthly, even though this is a CSA, we would also like to see novel research and applications. Next slide, please. So expected outcomes, more or less what I just told you. We'd like to see more cohesive, especially SSH research innovation communities. We would like to see more interdisciplinary work between STEM and SSH researchers. Stronger links to main stakeholder groups is the third expected outcome. And then fourth, lower social and behavioral barriers and more citizen engagement. Okay, that brings me to my third topic. which is a little different from the two that I just explained to you because it's a pilot. It's a bit more experimental. Again, the scope, let me start with that. Where am I here? Sorry, I just need to find the right page. Yes, the transition super labs, this is an idea that was first mentioned in the by the high level panel of the European Decarbonization Pathways Initiative in a report that was commissioned by the European Commission, by ourselves. And the idea simply is to find a novel way of linking research innovation on the one hand and policymaking on the other hand in order to accelerate transition processes towards climate neutrality. This seems to be particularly important in contexts that are especially difficult, and we're talking here about non-sustainable business complexes, mining regions, polluted metropolitan areas, and to do so in an economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable manner. So the idea is that there are particular contexts in which this transition to climate neutrality needs to happen more quickly, and where at the same time it is actually quite difficult to get to a stage where that is actually happening, and therefore we need to accelerate it. In terms of the modalities, the transition super labs in a way could be seen as a living lab, but at a much, much larger scale, bringing in all the different actors that matter, stakeholders, if you want to call them that, businesses, industry, different levels of government, academia, civil society, citizens at large, regional, local governments, what have you. Can we move to the next slide? Expected outcomes. So given that this is a pilot, the first outcome would be a mapping exercise that would identify the settings across Europe. Again, this is not just meant to happen in just one place, but in different places across Europe. Which settings across Europe would benefit the most? So where would it make the most sense to apply this concept? Then some feasibility studies that go a little further and say, well, how could this be done in this particular context? Enabling coalitions is the third tiret there on the screen. That would mean to actually have done some work to approach those stakeholders that I just mentioned to you, or those possible actors and participants in transition super labs, and gone some way with them in terms of what the future work could look like. And then, of course, a program outline for the practical delivery of a number of transition super labs. I can never, ever pronounce this. Maybe you'll have the same problem. So because again, this is a pilot project, of course, we would like to see something by way of an outline for what the next stage could look like. Yes, and that's all that I'm going to say at this point. Looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, again, for those very interesting presentations that prove once again that innovation needs to happen everywhere and in society as well, so that we can reach our research outcomes. So now for the very last topic, which will focus on national contact points, we have a pre-recorded video from Thomas Schubert, who could not join us live today, unfortunately. So I will leave it at that, and after it, we will of course start answering your questions, which have been coming in quite steadily over the session. So yes, thank you.
The title of the topic is Fostering Cooperation Between Horizon Europe Cluster 5 National Contact Points, or NCPs. That's the abbreviation. The most important information probably is the eligibility conditions for this topic. Because only applicants that are national support structures responsible for Cluster 5 and officially nominated to the European Commission from a member state or associated country national authority are eligible for funding under this topic. All other organizations are not eligible for funding and should not apply to this topic. This is very important because the targeted stakeholder community is rather small. What do we expect the project to deliver? We expect that the project will help to improve the professionalization and skills of NCPs across Europe, thereby simplifying access to Horizon Europe calls, lowering the entry barriers for newcomers, and raising the average quality of the submitted proposals. The project should also reach out to other NCP activities, to other support structures like the Enterprise Europe Network. Also, the cooperation between NCPs should improve, and the integration of cross-cutting issues should also be improved. The project is expected to identify and share good practices, and thereby raising the general standard of support to the program applicants. In particular, it should enhance the competence of NCPs, especially of less experienced NCPs. We expect a close collaboration and the exploitation of synergies with other relevant NCP support structures or other support structures outside Horizon Europe, like the Enterprise Europe Network. Also, cooperation and synergies with other NCP activities in Pillar 2 is expected. The project should also foresee matchmaking activities to link up potential participants from widening countries with emerging consortia in the domain of Cluster 5. For all these activities, the project should build on the knowledge and tools generated by previous NCP networks projects supported, for example, under Horizon 2020. In terms of the project consortium, we expect a good representation of experienced and less experienced NCP in the consortium. Important, however, to underline that also national contact points that do not participate as beneficiaries in the consortium might still benefit from activities carried out by the project. The project should cover the whole duration of Horizon Europe. That means until the end of 2027. The topic, is a coordination and support action, CSA. That means the normal condition to CSAs apply. The EU contribution to the project, it will only be one project that will be funded, and given the very limited number of NCPs around, we also expect only one proposal to be submitted, is 3.5 million euros, as I said, over the whole program period until the end of 2027. The deadline for submitting a proposal is 19th October 2021. With this, I close my presentation. I wish national contact points good luck and success in preparing their proposal, and we look forward to a good cooperation with the national contact points within, hopefully, the project or in other ways. Thank you.
So thank you from the online. Unfortunately, you can't be here with us, to Thomas, for this very interesting presentation. And now we can finally start answering different questions. I will maybe take first a question for Gert on the social sciences and humanities, because Maurizio is not here yet. Can I maybe up here? Gert, for the social sciences and humanities goals, is there an ideal balance being looked for between whole of Europe evidence for policies and evidence that shows local policy uniqueness?
Well, the short answer is no. there's never an ideal balance that you can find, or at least I haven't met anybody who could convincingly show that there would be such an ideal balance. It really matters. It really depends on the kind of proposal that you're tabling. If it is, you could just as well table a proposal that is very broad-based, that looks at very many different contexts across Europe and make the case that this is the right approach in this particular case. Or you could table a proposal that looks only at a few specific cases and then tries to generalize on that basis. Again, it depends how that case is made and whether or not the experts that will make the selection are then convinced that this is in fact the most excellent proposal. There is no ideal balance, really. It depends.
Thank you, Gaia, for this answer. I can see, maybe I can ask the two as well on SSH, sorry. So there is just transition topic that mentions synergies with the transition superlabs, so the other topic. So maybe to further elaborate if you can. And as well as which type of consortia skills do you expect for the SSH-oriented course? So is it purely social sciences and humanities, but also may STEM?
Yes, well, I'm just looking for the specific reference in the topic text where we would mention transition superlabs in, oh yeah, there. Yes, well, the topic text specifies that we would like to see the proposal build on other research that we are funding across Horizon Europe and possibly elsewhere with European Union funds. So this is just meant to reinforce potential synergies between these different ongoing activities. So just how this would work out, well, again, it depends a little bit on how those different projects would unfold. The transition superlabs do have a justice angle. Again, they are not supposed to just look at skills, jobs, financial compensation, and those kind of things, but they're also looking at how to bring in affected communities. So not just, stakeholders in the traditional sense, industry, social partners, but citizens also more generally speaking, and to do that in an equitable way. And that means that they have a justice implication. Just how this link should be done or could be done depends very much on how these different projects evolve, how they unfold. Practically speaking, it would be a good idea to establish the required contacts at some point in time, which is of course difficult before the projects have been awarded. But once they have been awarded, would be good to put out some feelers and just also to other supported research that could be relevant, and then to establish those synergies. Do you want me to answer the other SSH question there about consortia and skills while we're at it? Purely SSH, no, we're not looking at purely SSH. The three topics mentioned that SSH expertise is essential, obviously, because we're talking about SSH topics, and you'll find this mentioned in other topic texts across the cluster where we feel that SSH expertise is necessary to deliver on the topic. But no, we're not looking for pure SSH. So this is not meant to be just another silo, and this time for SSH people, just to add to any other silos that may exist. But the idea is precisely to break out of such silos. So yes, we would also like to see other kinds of expertise. And again, it depends very much on what kind of research and innovation activity is being proposed. You have to make sure that whatever you want to carry out during the activity can be done by people who have the required expertise and qualifications. And this is very likely to go beyond SSH. You may need, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but you may need some more technical expertise as well, some STEM expertise. I don't know, but you would have to see how you put the best profile of people together who can then deliver what is asked for in the topic and who can deliver on your particular take on how you want to deliver the objectives in the topic. So not just purely SSH. It's a short answer.
Thank you very much, Gerd. Maybe just to take a break of social sciences and humanities, a question for Vasilios on the topic of carbon capture and conversion. Is the expected conversion process only producing chemicals, fuels alternative to fossil fuels, or is the production of other raw materials eligible as well? So Vasilios, looking forward to your answer.
Yeah, of course, the emphasis is on fossil fuels because that's what we're trying to reduce. But I mean, it depends what kind, of course, of industries are also used for this technology. And there are other industries, of course, that this technology can be used to minimize the CO2 emissions and to convert and capture and convert the CO2. So this is not excluded. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Fortunately, our speaker, Maurizio, for the different topics on methane cracking and imaging technologies has not joined us yet, but he will make sure to try to answer in writing in the Slido directly. So maybe again, if we get so for transitions super labs, what kind of organizations do you expect to be included in the consortium, since the proposal will need to first map where to implement the labs?
Well, again, it depends very much on the context. If you're looking at, say, a region that used to be very much carbon dependent, meaning dependent on mining activities or processing of fossil fuels, for instance, you need to look at whatever communities and whatever stakeholders are participate or are the main ones. So what kind of actors, what kind of organizations, what kind of people have a stake, to use that term, stakeholder, in its proper form. So you might be looking at industry, actors from industry, you might be looking at actors from the social partners, you might be looking at citizens more broadly, since not everybody is a member of a trade union, for instance. You would be looking at various levels of government, probably. You might be looking at local government, regional government. You might be looking at academia, who could inform and assist with these kind of processes, monitor them, give advice, that sort of thing. So just to give you an example, and precisely, I mean, to identify what these communities would look like and who would need to participate in the Transition Super Lab, and approaching them so that at least you could assemble the foundations for such a coalition. That is precisely the idea behind the project. But again, what kind of actors, some of them are mentioned in the topic text, but what kind of actors, that would depend again on the specific context.
Thank you. And maybe on this note, another question that on the SSH, that many calls require engaging vulnerable or hard to reach communities through, let's say, traditional routes. Do you have any advice on what good engagement is expected and or what it should look like?
I'm not so sure that we say one should actually try to engage hard to reach communities through traditional routes. That sounds a bit like a contradiction in terms to me. I hope we didn't say that in the topic text, because for hard to reach communities, you sometimes need to use non-traditional methods and take routes that haven't been tried before. Good engagement, again, it's very hard to say that what that would mean in general. I think what would be very good to see is that there is an attempt made in the proposal to actually reach those kind of communities in the first place, because we sometimes simply don't put enough emphasis on that. Say, you know, if you only go through municipal governments, if you only go through the social partners, then you may miss out on certain communities that that don't feel fully represented, perhaps by these levels. So a stock taking of what these groups might be in this particular context, and then an attempt of reaching them in ways that are appropriate, again, to the context, that would be already very good. But yeah, it's a little difficult to say more about what good engagement might mean. Again, you know, if you have the proper expertise on the consortium, then you would have people who could advise you about how to reach certain communities, what has been tried before, what has worked well, what perhaps hasn't worked so well. And that would then be reflected in the proposal perhaps as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then for the topic on fostering a just transition in Europe, do the consortia need to address all distributional implications?
No, that's a standard question we receive, and I just looked again at the topic text. It's not meant to include all those distributional implications. We realize that the proposal, the topic text, is rather broad, so it would be far too challenging, really, to cover each and every one of these aspects that I mentioned. Again, I mean, it depends on how the case is made, why a certain number of these aspects or a certain number of specific distributional implications will be covered and not others. But this is a case that would have to be made then for each specific proposal, knowing that it's probably impossible to cover absolutely everything that can be related to just transition. And that's not meant to be the idea of this topic.
Thank you. And then for the just transition, what would be the deliverables in terms maybe of methodology for governance models, policy brief, network of living labs, etc.?
Well, for that, I would just refer back to the expected outcomes, you know. I don't think I can say much more than what's in the outcomes actually already.
And do you have an example, maybe the same topic, and how can taxation, business models, and related practices connect to inequality and the transition?
Well, I think this goes into too much detail right now at this point. I mean, to give you just perhaps one example, which is a little different than what you put in the question, but say an approach that looks at just transition only from the perspective of jobs for the men who lost their jobs in the course of the transition. That would leave out the angle of the families and the women, especially if we're talking about women who might not be working themselves. So how can you make sure that those kind of more gendered angles can be reflected in a just transition approach? That would be an example of how to go beyond the rather standard approach to look at just, replacing the jobs that exist with other jobs that may arise in the future, but overlooking at the same time the needs of those people who may not have jobs, but who are connected to people who have jobs in different ways. I'm afraid I'm not much of an expert on taxation and those kind of things, so I don't think I can give you an example on that.
Thank you very much, Gav. Maybe I can quickly answer one of the questions, which is about concerning CCUS. It looks like all projects will be focused on CO2 capture or utilization. How about storage and transport? So this topic, which is in destination 2, which is about breakthrough technologies, is about breakthrough technologies. So, and we have a whole part of the cluster 5, which is actually dedicated to CCUS. So that's why you're not going to find it here, but in other topics of the Horizon Europe work program. Then we have in working with for just transition. In working with our type communities, are we expected to align with the Superlab's approach methodology in their projects?
Again, that's a very short answer. Those two topics are separate from one another. They will each develop their own approach and methodologies. What we're asking here is to look for synergies, but not that one activity follow the methodology developed by the other. So no, it's not necessary that the Just Transition projects would follow any methodology developed by the Transition Superlabs projects.
Maybe this one, do keep your questions coming. Unfortunately, we don't have 2 other speakers right now online, but we'll make sure to try to answer as best as we can. For I think this is the last question related to Just Transition that I have right now, but is there any trade-offs between action and repercussion requiring different analytical capacity for a consortium than impact repercussion? Do you have any preference on this?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I mean, perhaps there is a difference of expertise and qualifications in assessing the repercussions from actions as opposed to the repercussions from impacts. Again, you would, there is no preference really. I mean, I don't think there's any preference there. Perhaps you could say that the impacts result from actions. So, if what's important is what comes out at the end, to use the words of a former German chancellor, then perhaps impacts matter more than actions. But I think, again, it depends on the kind of impacts that you're studying, and then you will see whether you need qualification expertise more from economists or psychologists or sociologists or technologists or whatever. I don't think you can say that there's any preference really in there.
Thank you very much. And I just see very pleased that Maurizio managed to connect back. So I will transfer him a few interesting questions, especially on the technologies for non-CO2 greenhouse gas removal. One of them is, would capturing gases from wastewater treatment plants satisfy the condition of the pool?
Here. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, well, that I would not qualify as, let's say, capture from air. Neither if I understand the question correctly, this is basically what you do from basically for biogas production. So biogas production per se is not.
Thank you. And continuing on this topic, are abandoned coal mines emitting methane considered as part of fossil fuel supply chain for this topic as well?
Yes, I would say so, unless it's, let's say, in the surrounding area. If it's from the atmosphere, from the surrounding area. Otherwise, it's basically methane capture again, like in the other case. Yeah, I would say if the methane is already concentrated, that's not, and it's written in the topic. If it is from the surrounding area, it might be.
Very clear, thank you. We also have, so we have, maybe I can ask maybe the two questions because they're still related to the same topic. So for this topic on technology for non-CO2 removal, do we need to address all the gases or just one, which is non-CO2, of course, is okay? And the second one is it possible to study also the capture of N2O from anthropogenic sources, or this type of emissions is out of scope for this topic?
Well, if the first one is yes, and even a single gas, the methodology would be eligible. Of course, as we said, the synergies with other of these gases or even other pollutants and CO2 would be a benefit in terms of global energy use. But let's say a single gas would be eligible. The second question, again, I'm not sure how that matches with the global chain, so to say, but I think that in this case, N2O capture close to the source, and therefore where it's more concentrated, it's fine. Because there is this 1% limit for methane, just to exclude the let's say, treatment of the chain, while there's no chain as such for N2O. So in that case, I think that would be eligible.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have a few questions left. So this time for methane cracking, in the topic title, do the numbers indicate batch of the calls and opening month?
Sorry?
Is it, so maybe I just misunderstood. Do the numbers?
I mean, there was the slide at the end with the deadline, the opening is already
Yes.
open. There's not an issue. And what is the other one?
A batch of calls. So, okay. So I guess it's just like there's one opening date,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yes.
that's it. Okay. Then for for the one on emerging technologies, are hybrid renewable energy concepts combining, for example, sun and wind power with bioenergy eligible for this goal?
Sun and
wind.
sun and waste.
Wind.
Well, provided it's a breakthrough. I think the key word is breakthrough, not incremental, not 5% more, not energy harvesting, which is normally in the few percents, not milliwatts. If it is a breakthrough and you argue that this combination is giving a big benefit, then it's fine. That's, I think, the message. You know, there are some examples, but as I said, they are not exhaustive, simply because we cannot think of things which are not there. So there are some ideas, there are some things which were, let's say, emerging, but if the proposal addresses something which gives a step change into something which is related to the applications we mentioned, so transport, energy generation, local and distributed, and so on, then it's fine.
Thank you. Quickly, it needs to be breakthrough and not incremental.
Yes. And of course, not already, let's say, you know, there is fuel cells, just to make an example. If it is a development of fuel cells which are there, or where there is work done, then breakthrough, I don't know, would be liquid based fuel cells or something like that. That's breakthrough.
Thank you. So yes, going back to technologies for non-CO2 greenhouse gas removal, could you please elaborate on what you mean in increasing knowledge on the plausibility of removing non-CO2 greenhouse gas from the atmosphere?
Well, you know, there's not much around on that. So we, as I say, we put it as a breakthrough in the sense that it's something which, but of course, the basics to make it viable, of course, should be explained in the proposal. How the scale up could work and how this would be feasible also in economic terms. I mean, we know that these are gases which are at even lower, let's say, presence in the atmosphere than CO2. So that's why we think that, for instance, the association with other pollutants or other greenhouse gases might improve the cost efficiency of it. But as I say, basically, the proposal should show that this is not something which stay in the lab, but it has potential to scale up.
Great, thank you. Okay, it seems great. It seems like we will be able to answer all the questions, at least the one I have for now in the session. So, and again, the technologies for non-CO2 removal are very prone to a lot of questions. Should we also investigate physical property of emissions of non-CO2 greenhouse gas, or is it out of scope of the topic?
What do you mean at the source?
Investigate physical properties of emissions, of those emissions that are non-CO2. Or is it just about the technology that removes it? I think that's what it means.
Is the technology for removing them, yes. And let's say not at the source, in the sense that if that means, for instance, after treatment for exhaust, to take it out of diesel exhaust, which is a growing problem now due to side reactions in the SCR, that's not. That's really when they are in the air, or in, let's say, in a non-concentrated area, then that's viable. So, sorry, that's applicable, so to say, and show that that's a viable proposition. But I don't understand exactly what these physical properties mean, but I could think it relates to the source, and in that case, that's not.
Thank you. So yeah, we have one final question, this time on emerging technologies, on the technology readiness level for the use of already available industrial processes and raw materials for easy TRL upgrading and final transfer to mass production. Is it only up to TRL 4?
Yeah, basically that phrase means that there could be low TRL applications, even if based on bricks, so to say, which are higher TRL. That's the meaning of that phrase. So the TRL that we consider for the application is low, but there could be parts of the chain, so to say, or the material or whatever, which are at a higher TRL. But the combination of them is breakthrough, and it's innovative, and that is the final, let's say, metric that we apply, not the individual technologies.
Thank you. And then we have a bit more, let's say, logistics questions. So it's for the Horizon Cluster 5 topic, Destination 20116. Is it going to be presented? Maybe I'll let Ger answer that, but I think it's because the opening of the call is just further away. So that might be why, but I will let Ger confirm whether or not that's the case.
Which topic are we talking about here?
The one 16. So the one just after fostering cooperation between the national contact points.
I have no idea, unfortunately. I can't answer that question.
But from what we know, that all topics that are presented today are the ones which are until February 2022. So the ones after will be presented in the next info day. So yeah, and that's, I think, the final question that we have. And with this, I will thank everyone to have listened to all the questions, and I will close the session a bit earlier than expected because we have ran out of questions. So I will thank again all the speakers and all the potential applicants for their very interesting questions. With this, I wish you a very good end of the day, and yes.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.